Hi, thanks for having us here today. Um, we're going to talk about two sad facts. It's all in the context of great success for Washtenaw County and a lot of growth, but there are a couple of key things that we're really failing at. We are in the 8th percentile of socioeconomic mobility in the nation, and this means that if you're born poor in Washtenaw County, you'll probably stay there. We're also the 8th most economically segregated region in the nation. Whoops, and you can't really see it, but the word invisible is there, very light. It's even more invisible than I intended. But this means that there are huge groups of people who are invisible to each other. People with resources and people without resources don't live, work, or play in the same spaces. But meanwhile, I'm going to play a short audio clip of something that we heard at Holmes Elementary School many times, almost every time we were there, which was twice a week. It's going to sound like it's poor audio, but it's actually an accurate representation of what we heard through the PA system at Holmes.
All right. Dang, give me my And that class with perfect attendance, and they are an M-STEP testing class, and Miss Berry's class was real close. That class is Mrs. Robinson's class has perfect attendance. And great job, Miss Robinson's class. We're going to continue the staggered dismissal. If you are not a second grade class.
Thea and I said that if the audio didn't work, that we would recreate it first. So this is the story of a community organization, an artist, Thea, and Holmes Elementary School, and how we worked together to try to melt some of the boundaries between us. I'd like to introduce Principal Seth Petty.
Yep. Good morning. Just giving background on Holmes Elementary School, and I know so appreciative of the work of both Linette and Thea in bringing this great program. Holmes was a priority school, which means it was in the bottom 5 ranking at state levels, and it was really on the state school closure list. Close to 95% of our students are Title I eligible, as well as eligible to receive free and reduced lunch. We're able to do some amazing things over the last 2 years at Holmes. One of the most important things under the leadership and support of Dr. Benjamin Edmondson, our superintendent, we've also been able to remove Holmes from both the priority list and the bottom 5% ranking, as well as we're no longer on the school closure list. And Linette mentioned some great points, and when I think about Holmes and our students, and one of the words my teachers and staff oftentimes say, I use the word potential. They're like, Mr. Petty, you always use that. And I saw it in the video, too. I kept saying potential, potential. And when I looked at it, and I know it's something that I intrinsically, a part of me, is defined in 2 ways, both as an adjective and a noun. And then the adjective form, it says having or showing the capacity to become or develop into something in the future. A noun is put as latent qualities or abilities that may be developed and lead to future success or usefulness. And when I see so many of our students, I know we're balancing between that adjective and that noun. And I know programs like Flyer Art allowed us to really develop and allow our kids not to make them things or its, but to make them nouns. So I'm appreciative of this program, and I'm appreciative of all the work that they have done to support us.
So FLY has been in the Ypsilanti Community Schools since our beginning about 7 years ago, and we offer free after-school workshops that are opportunities to develop creative skills. And we do this because creative skills are the kind of skills that can get any kid from wherever they are to wherever they want to go. It's exactly what I want for my 2 kids and for everybody's kids. So Fly brings these projects in. We're there a couple of times a week. The work that we've done in the past has tended to be a little bit about independent vision and problem solving. It's really process-oriented and sometimes doesn't relate in anything that looks like much. Like we don't care about a craft or the end result as much as the experience of autonomy, figuring out what you want to do and how you're going to do it. But we developed a new program to grow called the Fly Creative Residency, which would allow us to collaborate with an extended community and invite people in, as well as model collaboration with students. We also wanted to address design thinking and then end up with a tangible result that could leave something good for the school. See, we were so thankful to work with Thea, who said yes to our proposal.
Hi. Hi, I'm Thea, and I'm an installation artist, and I also work in digital fabrication. And when I first met with Linette to learn more about this creative residency program, I said yes, kind of without realizing the full scope of the project. It was kind of a leap of faith, which we kept coming back to during the 6 weeks. And some of the statistics that you saw earlier, they kind of hit at my core. And another one that hasn't been mentioned yet is that before Principal Petty was there, the school had had 300 out-of-school suspensions within a year. And these are elementary school students. And that number just really struck me, and that all changed under Principal Petty's guidance and leadership. And I thought about just that stress level, not just for the child who is having to not go to school, but the stress level of a family life and how that then influences a community at large. And I wanted to help become part of finding solutions and making visible this kind of vulnerable population, these young kids.
The first thing that we did was to walk around with Principal Petty and talk about what the opportunities there were. And he identified a challenge for us.
Well, I know one of the things, even in talking to Linette prior to, was the aesthetics of the outside of our building. And I know, how important schools are to a community. And also, I know Linette put the task of Seth, we're not going to create what we want them to do. We want them to think about it and utilize their creative energies and skills in developing, an idea or a project. And it is an important piece. And I know even seeing where we're at right now, it is a beautiful, beautiful signature piece for our school and our community. But it really came from the design and the thinking and the processes of creative mindset from our students. And I think that was one of the most powerful pieces, as she said, was to look at the diversity and the group of students who participated. I know as we sat and we decided on who would be able to participate in the program, we made sure we had some of our challenging students, some of our really high-performing students, some of our mid-level students, and just making sure we got a really great balance of students, because we want all students to have an opportunity to experience great learning opportunities.
Yeah, so if you look at the picture of the school is set back from the street pretty far. You wouldn't know it's a school if the school buses weren't coming in and out of it. There's no signage, except for right up close to the school. There's something really hideous from the early 90s.
Yeah, we gotta get rid of it.
And there's not a single a little bush or a tiny hosta or anything that makes the space look alive. And we really thought that the challenge was about for a school like Holmes, where there was so much activity and so many powerful things happening on the inside, huge changes for the students and the teachers, all positive. Like, why did the outside not look any different than when it did as a failing school?
So the main question became, how do we take this brilliant energy and successes happening inside the school and portray that and present that on the outside for the community, and not just the community of parents and students, but literally anyone driving past on their daily commute.
And here are some of the things that we had. We had a really aggressive timeline where we met with students twice a week for 6 weeks. So we only met 12 times. We had great support from the school. We had a little bit of grants. I want to mention that if you ever play Ms. Pac-Man at Ruse Roast, some of your quarters fund projects like these. We had Thea and her expertise with her CNC router. We had a diverse group of kids, and we had an amazing fly teacher who's not here named Dylan, who was really artful at managing a classroom.
So a lot of this for me as an artist became a public art question. What does contemporary public art look like? And I wanted to show the students, can you hear? Sorry, I wanted to show the students examples of contemporary public art, just to give them a visual diary in which to kind of pull from during the next 6 weeks. And just to show them how art can transform a space through texture, through color, through form, through content, can change the emotional weight of a space. And here we see Louise Bourgeois, one of her giant spiders. This is about 45 foot tall spider. And this piece elicited an audible gasp from the students. It was more of a shock, like, oh my God, a giant spider, from cool, that's so neat. And I wanted just to get them having some emotion towards what they were seeing. And this kind of began. So this is another piece. Yayu Kusama is one of her public art pieces. So she covers everything in polka dots, and they just love the playfulness of this. So these kind of two disparate pieces kind of stuck with them, and we kind of discussed that throughout the next 6 weeks. But this kind of became, this introduced this idea of the process of observing and looking at the world around them, and disruption of the notion of art and what art can be, and disrupting what the space, next slide, yeah. Disrupting of what their school, the space that they're in every day, that they spend 6 to 8 hours in. And so I brought in microscopes loaned out through the Ann Arbor District Library, as well as a lot of plant material from my yard and just flowers purchased, and to get them disrupting their notion of what a plant, like what a flower is, what a plant is. So this idea of just observing at a micro scale and observing, pushing this idea of observation of their world around them. And again, the disruption of what they think a plant looks like. So they were looking at these things, seeing that there is orderliness in our natural world. There's patterns that they can see, that they can pull from. They're not, that a flower is not just one single form, that it's a series of abstract shapes, kind of all working together to form a larger, to create a larger form. And this kind of was a turning point. This was about the 3rd week in the project, and they had never used microscopes before. And we had, 2nd grade up through 5th graders. And maybe Principal Petty can kind of talk about this.
Well, and it really goes back to the exposure. And I know we hear a lot about STEM education, the science, technology, and I think the A in art, which really is looking at how you can develop an application and understanding. How do you utilize your science skills? How do you utilize your engineering skills? And to look at a program like this and knowing, as Thea mentioned, our kids were able to look at things in a totally different lens, and that's no pun intended, but to really be able to see things differently. And, to know these are experiences that they will carry with them for the rest of their lives. And I know, as she said, they are ranging in age from 2nd to 5th grade. And having that exposure, and a lot of times I know as a principal and working in various schools, I have learned that exposure and prior knowledge are so important to students. If you have never experienced it and you're tested on that same item, the expectation is that you know. And these type of programs and these type of opportunities that Thea gave are things that I know will help support their student growth and learning in the future.
So a lot of it was just trying to get these hands-on experiences. We got power drills. They were using power drills. They were using learning about nuts and bolts and putting things together, working with wood, and just trying to get them. For us, it became more about, it was about these experiences, not necessarily just getting to that end product of showing something in the front of the school. There was a shift for us in this project, that just having these hands-on experiences was one of the key components. And so it also kind of disrupted my sense of collaboration too. Going into this project, there was this idea that there was Holmes Elementary School and Fly Art Center and me as an artist. But I think it became, Fly became Linette, and the ideas Linette was bringing. Mm-hmm. And Holmes Elementary School, this abstract thing, became the 12 to 16 students that showed up every Monday, every Wednesday, that trusted that they were going to do something fun, and they were going to give us all their energy, whether it was negative energy that day, whether it was positive energy that day. They were just going to give us everything they had. And then for us as, adults, as kind of leaders, what do we do with that? How do we give that back to them? So it shifted my idea of collaboration.
When Thea and I were putting together the slides, one thing we were worried about as things went into the keynote was that it looked like it was just unfolding, that this process of collaboration was just like rolling out in front of us towards some end. But that really wasn't the case at all. The whole project involved some risk. Nobody knew what the end result would be. We had kind of a space, which was the front of school, in mind, and no idea of what it might be or how we would get there. We had lots of struggle, which we came to realize is part of the process. Like, struggle is striving because you have ideals and you have a desire to do something good. We had a lot of real and perceived failures along the way. And it all took a good sense of vulnerability from everybody. Do you want to talk about Amir's piece? So Amir, on the back of his piece, wrote "I love Fly," and this took Thea and I aback, and we both said at the same time, "You do?" So you can't always know what's happening in your relationship with a kid. But there was a lot of depth in knowing each other happening.
So what you see here are their final models for what became their projects. And these are they had done all these abstract shape drawings based on what they were seeing under the microscope, and then collaged these shapes together. So then I literally just scanned those images in, vectorized them, cut them out of the wood. I became their assistant. I relinquished my micromanaging of them and let them, this was all their work. And then we had 2 days of painting. I can't describe I wish we had recorded this, the volume of the classroom at this point, and the energy, and just letting them get really messy and mix tons of colors, and seeing how many colors they could mix together before it turned into just brown, and how much paint they could put on a single piece of wood before it would just, ooze off the wood. But it was a lot of fun. And then 2 weeks ago on Wednesday, we had our final planting day where the students had also planted, there you saw some sunflower seedlings. So they had planted seeds that they had grown over the course of the 3 weeks. And then they each also had picked out a type of sunflower that they liked the best from the seed catalogs. That $75 we had gift certificate of the seed catalog. So they planted thousands of sunflower seeds, worked in teams of 2 and planted some marigolds as well, and helped each other. And then they got done with that and just started digging. And it was wonderful to see these kids literally just digging holes and then filling in the holes and then digging more holes. Like, they had so much fun, like just digging in the dirt.
Yeah, and when I look at, once again, the impact on student learning, exposure and having the opportunity, as Thea said, to experiment. I know we're even as we look at assessments and standardized tests and, technology, which is so important, having that, opportunity to just freely express yourself artistically. And I saw so many kids I know, but for this program and this extra day on Monday and Wednesday, they potentially would have been at home, which potentially again, watching TV. But I mean, having an experienced artist to work hands-on with students, how can you put a value on that to be able to, give them pointers on how to develop and how to be creative and to have the patience. And I know in talking to Thea and Linette, I love my kids, and I know they can be a challenge as well. But I love them anyhow. And to have people who come in and know it's going to be a challenge, because to be a mentor, to come in and support a school like Holmes, it takes patience, it takes skill, and it takes a love for our student population. So I know in looking at the kids and looking at, some of the kids, I went and I asked, well, how was he? And they would tell me, well, he was really focused. I'm like, wow, him? But to see that, and our kids need that investment, they need an opportunity to experience, and I know through these opportunities, they grow, they develop, they have aspirations, but for a program like this, they might never have had.
The project at the end. So this is really just the beginning. This project with Holmes was a prototype. We learned lots of stuff, and we're ready to start planning fall again. I think of this project as a kind of a portal for the community to join in and to figure out, how can we stop being so invisible to each other? How can we struggle together to solve problems that are big and small? And how can, I can't think of another time in history when this is a more important experience for both kids and adults to have, this idea of digging in and seeing something positive happen through hard work together and collaboration. So I'd like to, invite everybody to think about if they're, willing and able to think about ways to make a leap and join in the cause of becoming visible to each other.